Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Emma Lefebvre, and as you're watching this, there's a very good chance I have already had my little baby boy, but as I'm filming this, I am still very pregnant. So what we've decided to do, as I'm currently on a bit of a mat leave and adjusting to life as a mother of two, we've compiled a bunch of my old videos from 1, 2, 3 years ago that we are going to be playing on Fridays for a Flashback Friday series. As my channel is starting to reach almost 500 videos and there being so many new subscribers every week, I'm sure there is a ton you have missed. So get ready for Fridays that are full of some of my favorite videos that hopefully you haven't even seen yet. So the one thing I do want you to keep in mind that if we are throwing back to videos from a year or 2 or 3 ago, there's a lot I have learned since then. I haven't been formally trained. A lot of this stuff I have discovered or taught myself, so I have learned a lot as an artist through the years, and my techniques have probably changed a lot. So if there's a video where my audio's not great, or maybe the camera work's not great, or maybe I leave my paintbrush in water for a little bit longer than I should, just keep in mind I've learned a lot since then. But it's also a lot of fun to kind of look back and see how far I've come as a content creator and as well as an artist. While I'm on mat leave and doing probably a lot of night feedings, I will be trying to check my comments as often as possible, so make sure you shoot me a message or a comment on my videos so we can chat while I'm up on those extremely late, sleepless nights. Overall, I really hope you enjoy these Flashback Fridays, so let's jump into our video. Today I'm going to show you how to paint a more realistic looking flower. So let's do it! Okay, so to start, I'm just going to go through my materials. I have my Arches watercolor paper. I have my Winsor Newton COTMAN watercolors. I have my Princeton snap brushes. I have a size 6 here and a size 16. I have a pencil, my eraser, my water, paper towel, and I have my reference photos. So today we are going to be painting more realistic looking flowers. They're not going to be like photorealism where you're like, you can't tell the difference, but it's going to be different than what I usually do, which is the more loose watercolor florals. So I'm going to show you a little trick to doing these. This is going to take a bit more patience, so just bear with me. So I'm gonna leave the reference photo here while I try and sketch this out. I will try my best to explain what I'm doing, but we will see how this goes. Okay, so the way I sketch flowers is I always start with the middle out. I'm not sure if that's the right way, but that's just how I do things. I find it's easier to work my way out from the smallest petals to the largest petals. And then I just try and overlap them. Don't worry if your sketches are not exact to the photos, they don't have to be. Also, if you're not the best at sketching, you can always use tracing. So, you know, if you have an iPad that you're looking at, place your paper on top of there, you know, turn up the brightness and just trace it. So just looking as close as I can to what the petals look like, where they're placed, which ones are overlapping, and then also looking at where the dark parts are going to be. So usually when we're painting these flowers, the darkest parts of the flowers are the ones that are kind of tucked underneath. So maybe petals that are underneath other ones, the ones that are closest to that middle are usually the darkest. Just kind of observing the flower and seeing where you're going to put those darker and lighter values. Okay, so like I just said, I'm really looking at where those dark parts are in the flower and where the light parts are in the flower. So the darkest parts are underneath and the closest to that base of the flower, and the lightest values are at the tips of the petals. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take a very light wash of my pink color, as light as I can get it, and I'm going to cover one petal at a time. Then I'm going to go back in with my darker pink and put it towards the bottom of that petal.
Now, to get rid of that harsh line between the dark and the light, what I do is I completely wash off my brush and I dry it, and then I just simply blend it out. Now, when I'm going to be working on the next petal, I don't want to paint a petal that is touching this one because this one is still wet. I want the edges to remain crisp, and if I were to start painting another petal that's touching that petal, the colors will bleed together, and that is not what I want. I want each petal to be individual. I want the lighter and darker values on that petal to remain where they are, and if you were to paint a petal that is right beside it, you might get those darker edges right into the next petal, which is not what you want. So also on the petals, like the one I just did, you really have to figure out where the edge of that petal is, where the tip of it is, because right there I just put a bit of darkness around that edge, which I just took up because I totally forgot, you want the base of that petal to be the darker bit. And even though it's on the top, it's just a different view. It makes it a little bit more difficult, but just try to figure out where the tips of those petals are, because that's where the light parts are going to be. So you're just going to keep doing this around until you have no more petals that you can do that wouldn't be touching another wet petal. Again, blending it out with that clean, dry brush really helps get rid of those harsh edges between the light and darkness. And towards the middle of the flower, because it's tighter, there's less light getting into it, those petals are going to be more one color. They're going to be all dark. Okay, so now that all those petals are done, I'm just going to take my heat tool and I'm going to dry it. If you don't have one, you can just wait for it to dry on its own, or some people use a hair dryer that I hear works. I've never tried it, but you can definitely try that on a low setting. I love my heat tool. It just speeds up the drying process, but you can just wait for it to dry on its own. So now I'm just going to continue to do the exact same thing with the other petals, going around until there's no more petals, and then I will dry it again and work on the other petals. Now, as you get closer to being finished, take a look and see if there's any petals that may need darkening, like the one I'm doing right now. Just go over it with a light wash, make sure it's dry. And so go over it with a light wash and then darken those base parts again. It just makes it a bit, blend in a bit better with the flower so it doesn't stand out as much, so you have a really light petal. But you can do that with any of the petals that you think might need a bit of fixing. And you can just start adding detail too. So you can see, you might need to add a bit of darkness to the center. You can also add lines, like really tiny light lines with a very light wash around on the petals. If there's lines on your flower that you see, little creases. Just step back and add any detail that you think your flower might need. And this is all that's really to it. You just work one petal at a time and have a lot of patience. So now I'm just going to show you, I drew a rose really quickly, and I'm just going to show you in a really quick time lapse of how I painted that rose. Now, as you see here, I went over the whole rose with a light wash. I want this flower to be a bit darker and more vibrant, so I'm starting off with a darker base than I did with the other flower. And it just gives the highlights on this flower a bit of a darker tone to it rather than the really light one like we did on the last flower. And there you go.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.